Wardrobe councillors. Okay. Right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome everyone, welcome councillors. Welcome to our live streaming viewers today. Councillors, we have a fairly detailed agenda for today. We have obviously the agenda that we have in front of you there with a closed session some items, so I know there's not anyone actually attending today in the gallery, and certainly a live stream, but we'll be aware that there are other items that we need to do in a closed session for this afternoon. So, councillors, a couple of apologies to start the meeting. Our CEO Scott Mason is an apology for today. He's obviously otherwise engaged. Is there any other leave of absence is required going forward, councillors? I think we've had a good run through it at the last three standing committee meetings. So. All right, well, councillors, we had originally wafted on, I think, Pastor Rod, who is just coming in the door now because, and surprise, just on cue. No, that's fine. Rod McLennan, everyone knows. For those who go to park run on Saturday mornings, I'll see Rod either running at the front of the pack or loitering down the back with the orange volunteer shirt on. But his role here today is to certainly lead us in prayer and give us some direction today at the meeting. So Rod, you've timed that just perfectly. I know that hasn't allowed you a lot of time to settle, but I see you have a page mark. So
yeah, it's good, and yeah, I certainly don't want to hold you guys up. I thought, could I just give you a very brief update on the church, because some of you know that we only started not 2 years ago. We started the Presbyterian Church up here again, and we got most Sundays. Holidays are a little bit quiet, but most Sundays we got between 50 and 70 people at church. About half and half split adults to children. So it's a pretty young group, and I don't know, this might be interesting to you guys as well. In that, there's only 4 families that have a history in the town beyond about 4 years or so. So nearly all of those people are quite new to town. Probably half of them are within the last 2 years or so. So yeah, I guess that's interesting. One thing we're doing well, I think, is welcoming new people to town, and some of the best welcomers are the people who are new themselves, which is really lovely. So we see a lot of good spirited community actions sort of going on. It's good. I was just going to share a brief story that Jesus shared with his disciples, and then I'll pray for you. Jesus told the story about a man who was preparing a banquet, who invited many guests to the banquet. This story might be familiar to some of you guys. He sent his servant out when the banquet was ready. He sent his servant out to go and bring in all the invited guests, and they all started making excuses not to come to the banquet, even though it was all laid on with food all ready for the celebration. The first one said, "Oh, I just bought a field, and so I've got to go and see it, and so I can't come to the party." The next one said, "I just bought 5 yoke of oxen." Remember, this is like 2 years ago, so 2,000 years ago. So think, just bought a new John Deere. I'm on my way to go and try it out. The next one said, "I just got married," and he doesn't go into details as to what he has planned, but imagination. Anyway, the servant comes back, and of course, no one's coming to the party. They've all come up with, in some cases, pretty weak excuses, and the landowner, the man who's prepared the banquet, is obviously quite upset. But he says, "Well, here's what I want you to do," to his servant. He says, "I want you to go out to the streets and the alleys of the town, and I want you to bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame," which I think is a really lovely move. The servant goes out, brings in as many people as he can, and he reports back to the master, "Sir, it's been done, but there's still room at the feast." And the master says, "Well, okay, you've covered the city. I want you to go out further afield to the roads and the country lanes and compel the people to come in so that my house will be full." And then he says, "I tell you, none of those who were originally invited will get a taste of my banquet." Well, it turns out they didn't want it anyway. But it's a lovely story. Jesus indicates that he's talking about the kingdom of heaven, that God is a God of incredibly generous love, who really wants to welcome all. I don't know if that'll give you any direction today, but I just think it's a great story. And if you will pray with me, I'll pray for you guys. O God, our Lord and Creator, we pray for the people of the world and the leaders of nations, that they may seek justice, freedom and peace for all. We pray for our own country and for all who exercise authority and influence. We especially pray for these men and women here today while they do their business, that they may serve in wisdom, honesty and compassion. And we pray for the community that we live in and work in, that we may use your gifts to act justly, to show mercy and to walk humbly in the footsteps of our Saviour. We pray in his name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. That's right. Yeah, my pleasure. Good to see you. Thank you for
sharing that story. It's nice to know that there is a church that's welcoming and certainly welcoming other people into the community. So that's always great news to bring to this time.
Yeah, cheers. We've got one here actually in the green, yellow top. Yeah. Another newcomer. But yeah. Right. Thanks very much.
No, right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, you didn't share that poppy seed cake very far today, did you?
Well, I should think I should take it out of the streets.
I'm feeling bad.
I'm feeling pretty bad right now. Yeah, well, thank you for coming and eating the cake. Those that did get it. There is a little bit more over there too, so.
Nobody had an excuse why they didn't want to share in the cake.
All right. Councillors, can we move ahead now to the confirmation of those minutes of the previous meeting, which is from the General Council meeting of the 29th of May. And they start on page 4 and they go to page 12. So the president of that meeting like to move those. Moved by Councillor Cycler, seconded Councillor Brindlecombe. So before I put that minutes, is that
just a query on the voting numbers on page 8.
on page?
8
yes.
It was carried 7 and then the next one was carried 8.
Councillor McAdoo. It was because Councillor McAdoo refrained.
And then was voted and then the other one.
Yes, so but
Yeah, councillor McIntyre abstained from voting on councillor Ross.
Yeah.
yes,
One,
So
because
two
of his
were out.
conflicts and two was
Okay,
out.
no, that's just,
Yep, so that was a discrepancy. We had a long discussion about this.
no,
Yeah.
I was just,
Good work,
No,
Charlie.
well picked up, Charlie, so it was good to reflect on that. Anything else in there that, I think that obviously that meeting that day was quite short meeting, we obviously had the students there. And all right, council, someone's moved and seconded that. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Any business arising out of those minutes? Mike, you've probably exhausted that. Okay, we'll go forward to those outstanding meeting actions. Councillors have a query about each of those. It's three pages. Using the same criteria, there's some updated comments there and there's some that haven't started. So councillors or officers, you want to be to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair, item number 11 on the closed out list, page 2, regarding those cancelled assessments, those rates and charges will be written off before the end of the financial year.
Yeah, we passed the resolution for those. So. I think there on number 13 in that strategy section there, there's a, I think most councils would have got notification this morning that subjects have actually started this morning as of 9 AM.
I saw
7.
7
all
was
the lorry trucks between your place
Yeah.
and the mine side.
it?
So they must have started about 6 o'clock, a bit earlier.
Oh, it was after 16, yeah.
Yeah,
So they turned into.
All right, so they just advised me they've got their final draft, so that's underway. Obviously, the community will keep an eye on that to make sure that the subjects have been very good in advising people with their changes are. All right, there's nothing else, councillors, so we'll move along. Those agenda items. think they're starting to reflect some of those requests we've made. Good, so they're there. Right, councillors. All right. Okay, well, we had a good crack at this last meeting, but certainly ongoing referrals to our material personal interest, conflicts of interest, personal gifts and benefits. Is there any declaration that anyone needs to make in respect of that? Yes, Councillor Godwin-Smith.
Mr Mayor, thank you. The closed session item in relation to the GP Super Clinic.
Right, so that's item 20.1.
Yep, I refer to section 175D, section 3 of that Act.
Yes.
It appears, being a councillor nominated by the local government authority, being CHRC, to that board, that I would be able to stay in the room. Previously, I wasn't actually aware of the fact that this section of the Act permitted me to stay. So, yeah, I just.
So in relation to that matter, under that section, you'll stay in the room for that discussion.
I'm permitted to stay.
Yep. I think we had a discussion about that where council appointed finance to the boards. We've talked to it.
Chair, one in regard to the same matter,
Yep.
and I will not be staying in the room for that issue in regards to that matter, as though I'm the chairman of the board.
As an executive. Thank you, Councillor Bell. So that's the same item 20.1, which relates to the Super GP Clinic. The GP Super Clinic. Councillor Bell holds the position as executive. All right, thank you, councillors. Any others? All right, we'll move on. Ms. Atkins, there's no petitions?
No petitions, Mr Mayor.
All right, well, our first agenda items actually relate to some development applications, so which is 13.1 on, I think, page 14. I see Stephanie is here. Sarah? Sarah, Stephanie. Ryan, the recently blessed, you will also turn there, thank you. All right, I'll hand over to our gentleman, Jeremy Fletcher, and he will introduce, I guess, the planning team that have obviously worked and done obviously a lot of work on this application. To lead us through that discussion. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, councillors, take this opportunity to introduce Ryan Tate, who's first time into the boardroom, to present some planning information for us, and he'll run through the update later on, which is our third report. Ryan's our senior planner. Been here for a couple of months now, a bit more than that. Settling in well. Everybody's aware of Sarah and Stephanie, so we'll kick on into what this report is here. This is a DA report for reconfiguring a lot 1 into 19 subdivisions. The council, or the officer recommendation is to refuse this application on a number of grounds, including the minimum lot size connected with the rural and emerging rural zone and emerging community, and what we've seen in the past in terms of the fragmentation of agricultural land. So I'll hand it over to Stephanie, and she'll detail the report for you all.
Just before you start, Stephanie, now is that microphone on for Stephanie Martin?
Yes.
It is? Yep, all good go. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay, as Daniel's pointed out, this is an application for a reconfiguration of lot 1 into 19. The lot is located, lot is described as lot 34 on RP 894119 on Whitehorn Farm Road. It has approximately 41.77 hectares, and the lots in size are going to be ranging in size from 4,000 square metres up to 3.088 hectares, and then a balance of 30 hectares. The application is compact accessible. Proposed allotment sizes are less than the minimum allotment sizes within the subject zones. The site contains 1 dwelling, associated structures, a number of dams, and has existing vehicle accesses from Pilot Farm Road. The eastern portion of the site has previously been cleared and contains fast regrowth vegetation on the western side of the site and contains denser vegetation. Subject site is bounded by the Nagoa River on the western boundary and therefore is subject to flooding. and adjoins land which is emerging community and rural zone to the north and south, and is bounded by Pilot Farm Road to the east. The officer's recommendation, as Dan was pointed out, is for refusal for this application on the grounds of the proposed development does not meet the minimum allotment size in the rural zone and emerging community zones. The proposed development is inconsistent with the state planning policies for agriculture due to fragmentation of agricultural land. Subsequently, the proposed lots have the potential to cause small lot intensification within a rural zone, and there is clear strategic direction to protect agricultural land. The proposed development does not progress the state interest for agricultural preservation and pursuit. The proposed development is inconsistent with the Rural Zone Code, Agricultural Overlay Code, and the future intent indicated by the strategic framework of Central Highlands Regional Council Planning Scheme 2016 for rural places. Inconsistencies with the Flood Hazard Overlay Code. The subject site is inundated with flood events and cannot provide safe, clear and direct evacuation routes that are trafficable by both vehicles and pedestrians in a defined flood event. And 6 grounds, potential impacts between incompatible land uses if the proposed development does occur due to subdivision layout designed in close proximity to rural activities. Just as a brief overview, the application was referred to an external referral authority, the Department of State Development, Manufacturing and Planning. We had also got internal referrals within council. The internal referral responses were included within the report that Jen put together. The main issues identified within this application: proposed allotment size are inconsistent with the minimum allotment size specified within the planning scheme, inconsistencies with Flood Hazard Overlay Code, inconsistencies with strategic framework, inconsistencies with state planning policy for agriculture, and incompatibility between residential and rural landscape. Obviously, leading to these proposed recommendation for refusal. So, just by background, the application was lodged with council on the 24th of January 2018. The application, the significant farming activities are located in close proximity to the site in the west and south of the private subdivision, which creates potential conflict between land uses. Potential impacts include possibly farm machinery noises, gas guns, red scarers, spray drift, all things we would associate potentially with rural activities. The western portion of the site contains sparse regrowth vegetation. Further east, sorry, I've already read that bit. Significant farming activities. The Nagoa River is located immediately to the west of the property. The site is subject to flood, and it's reflected in the flood hazard overlay which impacts on the property. Flood modelling indicates the allotments 1 to 2, 6 to 12, and 6 to 18 will remain flood-free in the Q100 event, if not a Q500. And potentially lots 3 to 4, 13 to 14, and 19 will be impacted by flood waters. Central Highlands Regional Council Planning Scheme states that the minimum lot size is 10 hectares in the emerging community zone. We've got minimum lot sizes there shown at 4,000 square metres, and 2,000 hectares within the rural zone. The balance lot is mostly within the rural zone, and it's about 30.8 hectares, I believe. Significant shortfall with the allotment sizes with the proposed development. Further with the assessment against the planning scheme, the proposal is assessed in particular against codes for Rural Zone Code, Landscape Code, Work Services and Infrastructure Code, Transport, Parking and Access Code, reconfiguring a lot code and relevant overlay codes. Of particular relevance is the Rural Zone Code, the outcomes, 2 of which provide for a wide range of rural uses to ensure non-rural uses are located so as to avoid potential conflicts with existing and future uses and so as not to negatively impact on rural production. The proposed reconfiguration will result in fragmentation of an already small, as in less than 2,000 square metre hectare lot, and allow non-rural uses to introduce potential for conflict between these uses and established rural activities, both on the site and on surrounding properties. Within the emerging community zone, the purpose of the code is to identify land as suitable for urban purposes and protect land may be suitable for urban development in the future. to manage timely conversion of non-urban land to urban purposes, and to prevent or discourage development that is likely to compromise appropriate longer-term land uses. In order to aid in achieving these points, the planning scheme outlines that the minimum lot size is 10 hectares. This proposal does not meet that area. Just jumping to the conclusion on the report. The application relates to the development permit for reconfiguring one lot into 19 allotments located within the rural zone and the emerging community zone under the Central Highlands Regional Council Planning Scheme 2016 Amendment 3. Proposal is not considered to be in keeping with the overall outcome sought for each zone and does not comply with the provisions of some applicable codes. The proposal is recommended for refusal as outlined in the Council's recommendation.
Right.
Chair, I was wondering if Sarah or somebody might be able to give us some history on this block. This block was before council back in 2013, 12?
I think there was a prior application lodged, but it was withdrawn by the applicant.
At the request of council. And I think council indicated at the time that they'd absorbed some charges if it ever came back. So and there's been a lot of intervening things that have happened since, including floods, and I think it was around that time. It was either after 10 or 11, or it was around. It's very old. It's a very old application. So Mr. Blake actually put, as I said, put this application in, withdrew it then while we were reviewing flood lines, flood, inundation areas, and the new flood processes. So he's now put it back in again. Slightly different though. I think it's changed a little bit for what it was originally. Had some nice blocks and whatever. But yeah, certainly can't do anything else but support the recommendation officers.
I guess the main difference is since between the two applications, it has changed zones from rural, and it is in the emerging community zone. Just development in the emerging community zone now is a little bit premature. We put it in the emerging community zone so we can do a lot of planning background before. So for the life of this planning scheme, that's what we will be doing. We'll be doing background studies, structure reports, and how to get infrastructure to there. If he wants to do it now, the infrastructure will have to be paid up front, and it won't be contributed to trunk infrastructure if it wants to go now. So that's why it's in that emerging community. Ultimately, it probably will be considered viable for urban development.
In some shape or form, but yeah.
So this is what's confusing me. I mean, I understand how it gets treated in this planning scheme. I completely disagree with the grounds for refusal. I think that's very confusing on the basis of the conflicts with anything in that particular area there. I mean, right next to it, you've got a whole area, a whole block of land that's actually has a current approval for residential on one side, so there's no agriculture on that side. You've got effectively an acreage, for want of a better term, subdivision below it. So in terms of the fragmentation, that language, I know it relates to the code, but it certainly looks incongruous when you're looking at this as an overall plan. And I think that's the reason why I feel very uncomfortable with the terms, these emerging neighbourhoods and fragmentation of agricultural land, because there's absolutely no expectation in our community whatsoever that there's going to be agriculture per se in a particular area there. It's either flooded, inundated, you've got Cusack land further over, you've got a guy that's on a small, we've got some small crops a little bit further over, but then we've already shown that there's a development pattern established past there that actually says that there is some agriculture, and potentially that whole lot beside the middle, which is the old pilot farm, is actually what, 400 lots, it's 500 lots there. So I suppose I agree with the fact that in terms of it's changed the new scheme and the application, I just wonder about that message back to these sorts of guys when they're applying for these, how then it's a fragmentation of agricultural land and they're going to look across the road and say there's some standard residential development. There's already stuff past me that's already zoned into a smaller, what do you call it, hobby block, rural living point of, I suppose, if we use the old term. And I just, I just worry at some point that, you know, that sort of, the grounds for refusal are going to look fairly obtuse when you look at the pattern there. So this would be certainly, notwithstanding the recommendation, I think this warrants this really clarification of where you do want to see some of this happen, and maybe there is something else we can add to our scheme. I'm not sure. This looks odd to me, it really does.
Okay, I guess, I haven't actually, this application actually covers 2 zones, and I guess that's why the rural was brought in. But I guess from what I was just saying, I was just primarily looking at the fact that it has sort of been upzoned from rural into emerging communities. I guess the rural refusal, reasons for refusal come in because part of that application is in the rural zone.
And you know, notwithstanding that, I mean, you know, the minimum subdivision area is 2,000 hectares. Well, there's a real incongruity there with, you know, clearly you started out as an area less than that anyhow. And I know in an empirical way, there's the way these things start, but it really does warrant, I guess you'd say, a real, I suppose, you know, an accelerated approach to deciding in some areas, particularly where we have some settlement, and certainly in other places. And I don't think they're too hard to define within the planning standards, certainly around there, that something can happen here. So. Now, the second question is, I mean, in terms of this is a refusal, what options has this applicant got in the future to actually come back and actually, when this matures a little better, and I'm using your words here, what options has he got to come back and make some sort of other application in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. He has an option to come back and make another application. Our planning scheme, they traditionally last 10 years. Within that time, we will have council ourselves. We've nominated that area as a potential area for growth, just not today. And during that time, we will have put the money in, we've spent the money to how we're going to get the infrastructure there. At the moment, if he paid for it, it'd just about be unviable for him to do it himself.
So we would insist there'd be a potable water supply, and under that zone, what would he be required? He wouldn't be required sewer, there'd be self-contained.
If he wanted to go the rural residential, which is the larger lots, I think 4,000 square metres, which is traditionally our rural residential lots, I don't think you have the ability to harvest your own water from that, so water, but sewer, they work perfectly with on-site systems.
Well, I just need to be clear, because I think with these sorts of decisions, I think it's good to have an alternative for people, that they understand, you know, certainly the reasons for refusal. And I know you've given some here. I'm not sure how well you sell those, but the reality is I think you need to give someone a plan about what they might be able to do or other options. And I just think, you know, you're not obliged to do that. I understand that, but I think it'd be nice if people do know what their options are. Right, sorry, Councillor Roll.
I'll ask a question, please. On the rural, is that remnant vegetation? And does the state's vegetation management laws relate to this rural area? Does it cover that rural area?
I don't know where it's on the
It
map.
was actually a trigger for the referral agency for the vegetation itself, and they responded in kind, basically saying that they believe the development had proposed lot boundaries and building envelopes to avoid the impact on that remnant vegetation, and that complying with their codes. So they were happy with what they information they were receiving.
Yeah, page 45 years for that.
Sorry, I missed it.
All right. Any other questions, councillors? Oh, sorry, Councillor Nixon.
I'd just like to make a comment. I mean, I'm really more concerned about the inundation. I mean, we spend a lot of time on making people safe, and then we look at things, putting development in a flooded area. I just really think there should be more emphasis on inundation as a refusal goes through for this. I'd like to see that emphasised a bit more.
Well, it certainly shows here on the overlay that there is part of it, obviously, that's not affected, but that's something to make note of, I guess, in the future. Right, Councillor, any other questions? Oh, sorry, Kirsten?
Really, Mr Mayor, just to clarify with development within the emerging communities, often when developers are serious about doing large scale developments and they want to jump the process of council doing the structural planning, they can actually undertake that work themselves and submit it as part of their application. Because this one is split zone between emerging communities and work zone, it does make it very difficult. Whereas if the parcel was 100% emerging communities, they can undertake those studies themselves and subject to council reviewing it and being happy with it. And as Sarah was saying, developing the infrastructure themselves. That's how they can get over the line sooner as opposed to the waiting until the planning scheme changes.
Well, that's a good option, because I'd like this applicant to know that there's an option available. I mean, if there is parts of this that can't work, so.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just say that, like, during the construction of the new strategic planning scheme, I know Mr. Black had a submission and discussions with our planners, and I think it was of an understanding that the area that we're talking about now is all in the emerging area. There wasn't a split, but I think for some reason lines on the map haven't aligned and things haven't happened that way. But I know that there was an intent, or in his submission certainly an intent to have this area all in the emerging zone.
Well, councillors, look, I think, at this point, I mean, the application is what it is. We've asked those same questions. Is there any other questions before we go? And thank you very much, Stephanie and Sarah. I mean, it's always a hard one. It's always, it's not quite all, they're not all clear. I mean, having a lot that's, partially in two zones is always a difficult proposition, but certainly the reasons are there. Councillors, if there are no other questions, the motion is there for refusal. Someone have any move that? Moved by Councillor Brindlecombe, seconded Councillor Nixon. All in favour? Against? You like to, Bill, do you want to put it vote and put it against?
No, I was voting.
Okay, unanimous, thank you. Councillors, page 48. All right, another planning application there, which is for SEN Developments, which is extending a relevant period again for Big Down Street Capella. Thank you. Plans, Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, councillors, this next report, Julius Natures before you as a request for to extend the relevant period for reconfiguring one lot into 94 and chip material change of use to establish the 94 houses as part of the application in Capella. There are 4 grounds of refusal for this particular application. I'll let Sarah detail those for you.
Yes, this application was first approved in 2014 and it was a combined application for material change of use and a reconfiguration of lots. So there's one house on each lot, a single 3-bedroom house under community title with a 0 lot line placement and on the property. There's one single access from the subdivision and that's onto Burn Street. During the past 4 years, for the currency period, no works have been completed on the site, no works have started, and no further approvals have been gained. Since the first approval, there have been some changes in our legislation, primarily the adoption of our current planning scheme, where the zoning change has not only been changed on the lot, but also in Capella as a township. The lot has been rezoned from rural residential to general residential, which indicates that the property is suitable for development at a higher density than rural residential. However, the minimum lot size of 261 square metres is not consistent with the general residential, which is 600. There has been policies in regards to the reducing of urban sprawl and housing affordability. So the planning scheme has made allowances for that and has created a medium density residential precinct where the lot size, minimum lot size is 300. In Capella, this area is located in the centre of town, 1 block behind the commercial strip that fronts the highway. Minimum lot size is 300 square metres in this zone. The subject site is not located in this precinct, nor is it situated in the centre of town. Furthermore, the intent of the general residential is to maintain the character and pattern of existing low-density residential areas. The original development relied on a needs analysis that does not hold the same relevance today. Undersized lots with a 0 lot line placement of dwellings does not reflect the character of Capella in general or the residential zone in particular, and that's why it's recommended for refusal today.
Councillor, you can see, I think on page 58, it's a very, very busy and a very, very small subdivision.
I'll say move.
Okay, the recommendation is there that application to request that extension of the relevancy period is refused. It's been moved by Councillor Nixon. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wimbledon. Any questions before I put this, please? All in favour? Against? Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, got away. All right, councillors, the Regional Economic Development and Incentive application on page 68. Yeah, sorry, that's, yep, okay, you're right, it's in the agenda on the front page, all right. So page 65, Regional Economic Development Incentive application, planner's still on the hot seat, thank you. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Council, as you'll recall, at the original Economic Development Incentive Framework that was adopted by Council in November 2014, expired 2 years after that, in November 2016. And throughout last year, we conducted a review of that particular framework, and then Council endorsed the Regional Economic Development Incentive Policy. This is the first application that's come through that policy. You'll note at the back of the report there is some reference to the previous framework applications that came through. So that's just for some reference there, that this particular application is from New and Born Proprietary Limited, and they're based in Springshaw. So I'll allow Stephanie's going to run through the details of this application, and you'll be able to work through the new criteria for the application in the report as Stephanie details that for you.
Thank you, Daniel. As Daniel's outlined, the new Regional Economic Development Incentive Program, or the READY policy, was adopted by General Council meeting on the 12th of September last year. The new policy now has a 4-year lifespan, which is up from 2 years on the previous policy. The READY policy is a package that aims to provide stimulus to facilitate economic growth across the region and applies to new and expanding facilities and structures. Incentives can be in the form of, but not limited to, rates and remissions, reductions or eliminations of fees and charges, time schedule for payments of fees and charges, or joint marketing or promotion packages, but really it's up to the applicant's imagination to see what they can come up with. Already applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis. This current application that we've got from Melbourne Pty Ltd relates to a quarry site which is operational on Wallaby Hill, which is 24 kilometres west of Springshaw and about 6 kilometres from the Dawson Development access road. For this particular site, this is actually an extension of the existing activity. On the 19th of September 2016, Council approved a planning application to increase the yield from the site from 7,500 tonnes per annum to 50,000 tonnes per annum. So in March this year, the applicant lodged an application under the READY policy for a refund of the application fees, which totals $19,618. Under the new READY policy, there are 3 assessment criteria. There's basic requirements, which basically consist of making sure that the application is consistent with the Central Highlands Regional Council values, the strategic outlook, and have no negative impacts on environmental impacts on the environment. This particular application has a planning approval for the increase to 50,000 tonnes per annum, and within that, the conditions for that planning approval were the conditions which mitigate the environmental impacts, such as times that they can operate and different proposals in there. I think I've actually written in the report as well, which I'll spell out. Here we go. Conditional planning approval, which basically manages their noise by reflecting hours of operation and restricting them from 6 AM to 6 PM. And there's other conditions on there which aim to manage things such as dust, possible erosion through additional conditions. Next set of criteria is the primary assessment criteria. There's a list there on the table, and basically I've outlined it in here that they are they're looking at employing people from the local environment, the local community, which is the catchment of Springshaw. They have an annual turnover from The site is valued at $1,290,000. Their transport component is valued at $800,000, so they're adding back into the community for transport component as well. Their total turnover for producing and delivering crushing rock materials at design capacity, as they've estimated in their business plan, is $2,090,000, which is a lot of money going into the community. One of their primary assessment criteria is that the project must be contestable, so that the company has or has been and can provide evidence of consideration of what other areas may have been looked at for location of business. In this case, this particular quarry is 102 kilometres from any other sourced basalt product, so this is pretty much the only site they can be for this catchment. They must demonstrate their commercial viability. They provided a business plan for 4 or 5 years. And they do have an ABN number, which is another criteria. And the business is already operational. This is an expansion which takes on more people, more staff, more full-time employees, more part-time employees, and provides back to the community. Moving on to the secondary assessment criteria, which is environmental standards that could be impacted by the applications. It's already operational. Current application financial assistance will not impact on existing or future environmental standards. Their incentive that they've sought, as we said before, is basically the application fees that they've paid so far, which is the $19,618. And Daniel, General Manager of Communities, has suggested we also look into the rates for reimbursement for the year, which is equivalent to $1,693 per annum. So that gives a total that we're looking at potentially of $21,311 for the READY incentive program. You can see there's previously supported initiatives in the table there. The application, this should actually read the applications which were approved, and see 2 on there were not, did not go through the process in there, so there was only 5 in the process that went through. So the recommendation is for the change through the policy of the amount of $21,311.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Well, councillors, comments on the plan then? The incentive? Yes, councillor.
So, the rates reimbursement, is that a one-off or is that every year?
That's a one-off. This is a one-off payment. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to add some additional context about the initial application that came through, did include that part, so under the criteria, that is something that they can apply for, which was just missed, so that's why I suggested we include that here.
Councillors happy with that? Question? Moved by Councillor Godwin-Smith, seconded by Councillor Sypher. That is that the Central Lawrence Regional Council approved in accordance with that Regional Economic Development Incentive, that refund of $113.11 to the applicant Millibone Proprietary Limited. Okay, councillors moved and seconded, all in favour? Against? No, just Councillor, you're for it? Yes, thank you. Right, councillors, now we get to 13.4 of the agenda item, which relates to the development application update. So lead in again, please, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, councillors, you'll be familiar with this report as our monthly update to you. I won't steal any of the thunder on the details because I know Ryan's been chomping at the bit to present this to you all, so I'll hand it over to Ryan so we can outline this.
Thank you, Daniel. The current list of development applications that we have before us, including material change of use, reconfiguring, involving extension and change applications, that are pending assessment or decision by council and elect within those boards. Currently, there's 33 applications lodged with council as of the 25th of May, and that's been outlined within the attachment. The types of these applications are summarised within figure 1 below, and they range from intensive animal industry, reconfiguring lot, community facilities for emergency services and infrastructure, and extension to currency periods, which by and large forms the largest part of our group of applications within the department. Of those 33 applications, 7 of these triggered impact assessment, including requiring public notification at some stage during that assessment period, whereas 14 of these applications triggered code assessment, with a further 12 being extension and change applications. A list of those current applications is regularly updated by planning officers within the team and within Council's record system. Since our last updates to Council, the planning team approved 3 and refused 1 application, and these have been outlined within the accompanying figures. And the approvals are detailed within Table 1, and these included reconfiguring a lot of 1 lot into 3, an operational works application for 2 billboard signs, material change of use application for an unmanned service station, and a material change of use application for an emergency services radio pole and siren for dam failure, all of these which will require assessment. Figure 2 provides a pictorial overview of the application numbers within the development and planning system for each month from quarters 1 to the start of quarter 4 of the 2017-18 financial year. To provide a bit more further comparison between the information is now has been displayed as part of the figures of Figure 2. It should be noted that in order to align with the agenda deadlines, that monthly comparison with the online data, the application numbers now include applications to and including the 25th of each month. Once an application is decided, the application is removed from the parent list of development applications and recorded within the register via Smartsheet and Excel. And Table 1 provides that list for development applications decided between the 25th of April and the 25th of May 2019. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nixon.
Just one comment on application number 4 there on page 72. The Sunwater siren, I believe there's going to be 2 put in, or?
From my understanding, that is correct. This particular application related to 1 of them and was assessed at the time for the Barilla Street one.
So we haven't put in our own application yet?
They're doing that.
Sorry, there is a...
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the application at the Barilla Street location required an application because of the zoning of it. The second tower is actually located located at the Yoga treatment plant, so that's council's land, and it's come to an agreement between Sunwater and council to do that, and it does not require an application because it is community facility zone, so it's intended for that specific type of use.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Any other questions? All right. We're just receiving that information. Thank you. Right, I think planners, that's it. That's, luckily for the planners, you provided us a big day. Thank you very much. It's noted. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Kirsten. Thanks. Councillors, we then step right down the agenda to the CEO's report, and obviously in Scott's absence today, Jason is to look at the event strategy, which is on page 53, which is absolutely incorrect. 76, so consistent with my agenda's not working.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, we are waiting to see if Andrew is available to attend for this report. Council has been engaged previously and consulted in relation to this report in its draft form. The report's come back in its final form now. It seeks adoption or at least receipt from Council in order for us to resource and progress it into the budget framework. Mr. Mayor, I think that's all I can say at this point in time. If the Council have detailed questions on it, barring Andrew's attendance, I'll have to take those on notice. And if there is concerns about aspects of it, happy for the report to be received and then further workshops and a strategy briefing.
Just a comment, I did speak with Andrea this morning and she said she wouldn't be available.
Councillors, look, I've been very happy to receive this report. I would like the opportunity of actually seeing this in entirety there before I actually adopted it. Just for the purpose of, I guess, a little bit more time reflection. I don't think it's
Yeah, there's a couple of things.
So, councillors happy to do that?
Yes. Yeah, I think that'd be
So,
wise.
Okay, well, councillors,
It's here
Andrew, look, we've just got your report here for the event strategy and action plan. Obviously, it's been brought to council before in a draft form, as the acting CEO has just pointed out to us. I think at this stage we'd like to just certainly receive it today for a little bit further review, if that's okay with you, and then it'll give us the opportunity of having a good look through it, and if there is something else to it. So, councillors, someone have a move that? Moved by councillor Cypher, seconded councillor Daniels. All in favour? Thank you. Which yeah, a brisk walk. Right, councillors, back to you, Daniel. You're certainly earned your kick today. Just in respect of departmental updates, council on page 165.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the report for the departmental updates in front of you is an extract from what was originally a part of the Community Steering Committee departmental updates, but given the nature of the particular updates being of a planning nature, we decided they would come to the full council for an update. I'll invite Kirsten up at the moment to outline any of the details here, but they're relatively self-explanatory in terms of the progression of the Blackwater PDA area, and that is significantly underway. Kirsten can mention those she likes. The submission on the draft solar farm guidelines, which council played a role in the recent meetings as well. Also, our temporary local government planning instrument for operational work within the flood hazard area. And the 4 particular submissions made to the Innovation Improvement Fund, which, if anybody has any questions beyond the report, please feel free to ask Kirsten tonight.
Right. Any questions there? Well, I guess it's more of a mandatory, I suppose, signalling that I like to make. I was party to the discussion. Your chair collapse, Anthony?
No.
Okay. I'm glad you've got that one. I was sitting on it all. Sorry, in relation to the Blackwater Priority PDA area, I did actually sit through a meeting there with representatives from EDQ, I guess, about the potential the handback over time. And there was indications there that there's certainly some infrastructure, vagaries, I suppose we can call them at this point in time. I would certainly not like to think that in our haste that we're prepared to sort of, I guess, there needs to be proper solutions to those. I think part of any adoption report that should come back to this council should talk about any deficiencies, if any, good or bad or tolerable, so that the councillors are aware of exactly the conditions.
Definitely. So since the report was taken in November, December last year about Blackwater education, we've been liaising with the state. So our development engineer and our coordinator of development and planning have been working with the state to overcome those issues with the infrastructure. So we got the message loud and clear in the meeting in December that we will be taking on it. I guess any infrastructure that's not up to scratch. So where we do know there might be deficiencies in some, and we're happy to accept those, and we'll definitely make that very clear in the report.
Thanks, Kirsten. Councillors, any other questions? So the submission's gone in. Thank you for that, Daniel. Right, councillors, let's just do no. All right, councillors, I think that's about, we've got some late agenda items. What I'll lead you to. Well, there's a couple of others, isn't there? Yeah. Councillors, just the late agenda items in relation to the, I was going to say, Kirsten, don't go away. Obviously, in our discussions previously, we talked about the, certainly the overviews of the waste forum and certainly that local law. So, Daniel, if you'd like to lead that off again, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, as we've previously mentioned, Kirsten and I attended the LGAQ Waste Forum on behalf of Council last Thursday. It was held in Brisbane, and We did do our darndest to get a video link set up for the councillors, and we were relatively successful until they moved the location. So that was the reason we couldn't get any Skype in for that for you all. But nonetheless, it was quite a productive meeting. We discussed some of the nuances the other day, but quite importantly, it was based around a number of things. One being the policy that LGAQ have supported at this stage, which is no waste to landfill by 2028. The waste levy, which the state government is currently introducing, the economics and feasibility of waste to energy facilities, 5 across the state, which media reports in the last couple of days have indicated 3 in South East Queensland, 1 in Central Queensland, 1 in Far North Queensland. We were also taken through some community attitudes surveys that were conducted in relation to the no waste to landfills, and also the community sentiments around energy from waste facilities. And also some information which Kirsten will be able to outline for you in the report here is a particular international study tool which is going to incorporate some energy from waste facilities in the UK, Europe and the USA, which the LGAQ are facilitating that. So there's some details here. Should any of our councillors be interested, we can certainly put that forward. So I'll hand it over to Kirsten now to detail parts of this report for you.
Thank you, Daniel. So through you, Mr. Mayor, as we're all aware, the Palaszczuk government introduced the waste levy back in March this year and announced the reintroduction of the waste levy. We do know now that that's going to be introduced in January 2019, on the 1st of January. So ahead of that, all councils have to become levy ready. So with that, it includes infrastructure upgrades at council facilities such as way bridges, fencing, surveillance, facilities being manned, etc. In light of that, there is a funding pool which they're yet to announce, but it's going to be somewhere in the tune of $4 million. The last waste levy, they had a funding pool of $4.1 million for councils to become levy ready by. By all accounts, the South East Queensland is ready to go in terms of their infrastructure, so a lot of that funding money can be tapped into from the more regional and rural councils. The waste disposal levy will apply to general waste streams. So 90% of Queensland's population will be affected by the levy, with 38 of the 72 councils being within a levy zone. Once the levy is introduced, it will commence at $70 per tonne for general waste streams, with higher rates for regulated waste, and increase annually by $5, which is in line with the increase in our neighbouring states. In terms of the other waste classifications, regulated waste category 1 will have a $150 per tonne levy, and regulated waste category 2 will be $100 per tonne. For councils to obviously come up to term with the implications of the waste levy, the LGAQ announced, the state government announced during the waste forum that a legislative amendment will have to take place to ensure that all councils are able to make amendments in time for the levy to commence in Q3 of this 2018-19 financial year. It is important to note that all change charges are recoverable, and the funds need to be hypothecated to ensure that local governments are the beneficiary, with funding available for initiatives such as waste disposal infrastructure upgrades, education and awareness raising, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Important to note, the waste levy is intended to have no direct impact on households. So to avoid that impact on households, Queensland Government will provide an annual advance on levy charges to those local councils that dispose of household MSW within the levy zone. So the rate of the annual advance is proposed to be set at 105% of the total tonnage disposed of in the previous financial year, multiplied by the current levy rate. So, for example, for the Central Highlands, for a local council with 15,000 curbside serviced households, an annual average of 700 kilograms in the red top bins, with the $70 per tonne levy rate, this equates to an annual advance payment of around $750,000. So, as Daniel mentioned, the LGAQ did commission Peak Services to undertake a study on waste energy technology. So they focused on landfill gas utilisation, anaerobic digestion, refuse-derived fuel production, RDF power plants, and gasification. It is noted that there are other technology options available to the market, including pyrolysis and plasma gasification. These were excluded from the assessment that Peak Services undertook for the LGAQ inquiry. As Daniel mentioned, and you may have seen the report from Greg Hallam on Sunday across the news stations, that the LGAQ are spearheading an advocacy campaign to develop 5 waste-to-energy facilities across the state, 3 in SEQ, 1 in central Queensland and 1 in far north Queensland. So at a projected cost of $2 billion, accruing an interest of $180 million per year. They're trying to get this project going and have said that it's not compulsory for anyone to be part of it, but it's just something that they're trying to advocate for. As we're all aware, waste energy is quite a new concept. There's only 1 facility under construction in Australia at the moment in the Kwinana Shire in Western Australia. So this is a $400 million project. So these facilities are obviously very costly, imposition to councils, and require state and federal funding to ensure that they get off the ground. This is the only example in Australia, and it's hopefully going to be operational by 2021. In terms of the community's attitude survey, so LGAQ commissioned Colmore Brompton to undertake a survey of Queensland residents regarding the waste climate and future of waste within the state. So it is important to note that this survey did include urban and regional residents, and accordingly, from the studies, the findings were not too disparate between the locations. So just some of the ones of note is 77% of the surveyed population believe that they are doing enough to combat waste management issues. 55% of them believe that councils are not doing enough. 72% of the surveyed population believe that the state government are not doing enough, with 74% believing that the federal government are not doing enough to tackle the waste issues within the state. They're also asked to comment on a number of other items, 2 of them being waste-to-energy initiatives. So there was support by the population surveyed by 75%, with 21% being neutral and 4% unsupportive. In terms of the waste levy implementation, I think backed on the fact that there's going to be no direct impact on households, 43% of them were in support of it, 29% were neutral, and 28% were unsupportive. They did comment that the population that were unsupportive of it came largely from the population who were neutral or unsupportive of any other waste initiative. So just basically the people who don't really care too much about waste in the area, they had no real opinion on it. As Daniel touched on, there is a waste tour proposed for August and September this year. So they've developed an itinerary for an international program going UK, Europe and America to visit waste to energy facilities. As we've discussed, there are no facilities ready in Australia to tour. So unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we've got to go international to see good practice examples across the world. So with the package options, there are 2 options. You can do the whole package option, which is UK, Europe and America, or you can elect just to do the Brisbane, UK, Europe one. So there is quite a large cost with these. With the entire package, the business class fares are $24,900. You can fly economy for $15,600. So the package does include everything that's required on the trip, from your transfers, your flights, your meals, your accommodation, etc. So essentially, you don't have to put your hand in your pocket once. The second option is just the UK Europe option, and business class fare is $20,200 and the economy class is $12,500. There's not too much of a difference in the price between the entire package and the Europe UK adventure, because they did it based on around the world trip ticket. So there's obviously a scale of economy by flying to more locations. So of note, we've got to move quickly if councillors or delegates are interested. So we have to RSVP by the 23rd of June with a deposit paid by the 30th of June. Places on the tour are limited to 20. So if some councils suggest that they'd be sending 4 people, the LGAQ will have to advise them that they need to drop some of their delegates so that other councils can come on board.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just one more point. If we jump back to the waste levy, just to reinforce the state government from a timing perspective, as councils are currently going through the budgetary process, the state government has confirmed that there will be a legislative amendment to the Local Government Act so that we can revisit the budgetary processes for this particular levy, so that won't be an issue for any councils.
So councillors, I guess we need to discuss just what the value of that might be in terms of who might go and who would provide us with the best, I suppose, advice in respect of that. If you wanted someone to go, I expect that if you're going to have the opportunity of looking at something, you look at everything, look at all the options. So I don't know, councillors, thoughts?
I just think the cost of it is just
Too much.
to be quite honest. I just don't think that can be justified. At the stage we are, I just don't think that we could justify that sort of expense.
Well, GAQ will report back to us though, won't they? With what they find, so.
Well, the council's happy with that. I personally think it's not a bad investment in making sure there was a good solution, but I'm not necessarily suggesting that's a good reason to go, but if people get a good enough report.
It would be who actually goes, whether it's from all coastal councils, or, you know, do you have a regional representative? So that's.
The LGAQ probably would send them anyway.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, a couple of points that were discussed before is that the actual trip itself there'll be no spare time. It will be an incredibly physically demanding trip to catch up with all of these places and all of the sites that are designated to attend. And not only that, I think that we really need to couple the fact of deciding whether council wants to be a lead agent in advocating for a facility in our region, or whether we're going to support something more broader in our particular regions.
It's early days yet, isn't it? I mean, I think that, you know, down the track, it probably would be more valuable.
So that's a consensus, we might wait.
Yes, it's definitely right.
All right, well, council, that's easy, we won't results in this, we do it just for the time being. Second part of that report is about the local law, is that where we need to go?
It's in your report.
So you just need to receive that.
Oh, we just received the notice of report? Yeah, okay, so moved by councillor Nixon, second by councillor Sykes to receive that, all in favour? Thank you. So unpack that bag there first, so away you go.
It's unfortunate. The passport ready to get booked.
Yeah, sorry. Councillors, the next report relates to that late agenda item, and there are two of them. So the second one relates to today's minutes, the creation of the local health law. Daniel, might lead that in again, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, councillors, this report is, as the Mayor mentioned, a report for the creation of a local law for waste. So currently, waste management is regulated under Chapter 5A of the Environmental Protection Regulation and Section 7 of the Waste Reduction and Recycling Regulation, both of which are intended to be discontinued or expire at the 1st of July this year. So in accordance with our requirements for curbside collection, we need to embed similar regulations into our local laws, and that's what we're recommending here. I'll hand it over to Kirsten to detail some of the particulars of the report, but in summary, this as a consequence of those two regulations expiring, we need to adopt something under our local laws to maintain our curbside collection.
Thank you, Daniel. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the recommendation that you have before you is twofold. It's proposed to make local law number 6, Waste Management 2018, and pursuant to section 257 of the Local Government Act 2009, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer of Council its powers under section 38 of the Local Government Act and Local Government Regulation to decide how the public interest test of Local Law 6 is to be conducted, and the matters with which the public interest test report in relation to Local Law 6 must deal, and consultation process for public interest test and how the process is to be issued in the public interest test. So, as Daniel mentioned, Council is proposing to make this local law, which will replace the provisions which will be repealed on the 1st of July with the legislative changes. So, The powers which are due to expire include identifying areas in respect of which council will undertake general waste collection activities, supply standard general waste containers, prescribe requirements for the storage of general waste, prescribe requirements for the storage and keeping of general waste containers, prescribe requirements for the removal of general waste, and prescribe requirements for the storage and treatment of industrial waste. So both the expiring provisions and the proposed local law focus on general waste, which is important to note. As a general proposition, waste collection contractors who undertake the collection of waste on a commercial basis other than council's contracted waste collection contractor argue that the expiring provisions and in due course the proposed local law, supported by council's power to levy utility charges in respect to waste management, give council an unfair commercial advantage. So the purpose of the local law is really just to safeguard council's curbside collection and ensure that we still hold the responsibility of waste collection within the region. In terms of interim local laws, council may not make the proposed local law as an interim local law unless council has adopted by resolution an interim local law making process. So council has not adopted an interim local law making process to date. So essentially, if this had been spearheaded a little bit earlier in May, we could have introduced an interim local law to get us over the timeframe. But with the timeframes of the legislation expiring, we've gone down the path of proposing to make a local law, going out to public consultation and getting that adopted in early July when we come back. So in terms of the risks associated with not adopting or resolving to make a local law, the new local law replicates the provisions of the expiring regulations to ensure that council can manage risks associated with the supply, storage, removal and treatment of waste and designate areas for waste and recycling collection within its local government area. If council chooses not to adopt the local law, council is at risk of compromising the revenue stream for generated by waste collection for the region by allowing users to make alternative arrangements for collection. So importantly to note, people can opt out of waste collection and then still dispose of their waste freely at council's transfer stations, which then obviously poses a greater risk in terms of waste management and the cost borne by council to get rid of that waste. Financial costs associated with the development of this local law. So we did look around on our local buy list. So the development of the local law is between $5,000 and $7,000 for the drafting of it and the correspondence that's required for advertising of it. This was cheaper than other legal firms which were on our local law list. So we have saved council money by obviously going out to other legal firms who are dealing with local laws for local governance at the moment. So the firm that we chose have done a number of local laws for our northern regional areas such as Douglas, Cairns and Whitsunday. So they are all just slightly ahead of CHRC in that respect. In terms of community engagement, we will commence public notification subject to council resolving for us to progress this local law, and we have had preliminary discussions with the communications team in relation to how we'll tackle that. So if the resolution is made, council can commence public notification tomorrow. Did anyone have any questions?
Just has to be.
You got a lot, councillors?
Well, just not so much about the local laws, but in a practical sense, when it's all gone through Parliament today and the budget, I understand, so things are happening. But we have some curbside collection from waste from commercial businesses in the town, as well as I suppose the Coles and Woolies. I'm not sure what they do with their stuff now, or they use private contractors. But all that now is going to have to be excluded, isn't it, or paid by the levy or weighed, or how are we going to deal with that? I mean, I'm nuts and bolts now and getting into the muck and weeds, but it's going to take a bit of untangling, isn't it? It's like that, or not?
With the local law or the levy?
Well, the local law covers us, I think, and says we've now got power to do all the separation and stuff. But I'm just saying,
the cost
from a tent, we'll be moving our budget next week, which sort of says we'll have all these bin pickups, and these bin pickups will be curbside stuff and build the commercial and industry stuff. And I'm just wondering, I mean, it's going to take a bit of unbundling. There's going to be a bit of mucking around between now January isn't out when this thing comes into play.
Definitely, and that's why, as I gave in that example of the cost of collections for local governments, that advance payment from the state is to cover councils, so that there is no direct impact on households. So they do need to get all of the financials from all of the local governments for them to calculate that advance payment, which is required. So.
Yeah, because I mean, Woolies and Coles and, well, the big shopping centres would be the biggest one of the bigger generators and others around the place. But I'm just saying, we do have the moment, curbside collection for some of our commercials in the commercial area here.
And it will be a financial imposition on them, and that's why it is scaled in the waste levy between the general rubbish rates and then category 1 and 2, so it goes up between 70 to 150, depending on the type of waste that's generated. So it is a big issue for the commercial properties and enterprises around. And I'm not sure what sort of consultation they've had in relation to that.
Yeah, sure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bell, we do identify some serious risks that we have in our area in terms of, we know we're certainly not levy ready, so to speak. Some of our landfills don't have the capability to weigh trucks, and that is a real imposition on our particular region, not to mention any type of manoeuvring within what that levy, the new levy might cause. So those risks, and some of those we've certainly spoken about before, but we will be progressing some risk mitigation around that in the coming months, so that we can report back to council to ensure that there's no gaps and that the levy itself isn't going to be a burden for council.
A good start. Yeah.
Just in regard to that, there is weight bridges in a lot of our smaller communities that could be utilised and potentially create a little bit of revenue for those that own and operate those weight bridges in the interim going forward. Christine, does this actually also take on regulated waste? Oils, rubber, concrete?
The local law looks after the curbside collections. Are you talking about the waste levy?
No, so the local law 6 is only pertains to curbside.
Yeah, it doesn't include recycling.
You'll get a chance to see a lot more of these things will be coming through after Gen 1.
Thank you. I think there's going to be a lot more come from this than anything today, as we're finding more. Money that you saved us $5,000 to $7,000. What are we actually up for?
Oh, so $5,000 to $7,000 is the cost of this local law. Other quotes came in at 10,000 plus. $5,000 to $7,000 was cheaper than the other quotes that we received. So from using solicitors on the local buy who previously dealt with local laws, it meant they're obviously not reinventing the wheel, they've done their paperwork. So it's just a matter of calling around different panels on our local buy to try and find out quotes when we are dealing with these.
I just read that it was $5,000 to $7,000 cheaper. It could have still been $200,000.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
it's just the way I read it. So.
The cost of it is between $3,000 and $5,000.
Thank you.
All right, Board Councillors, the recommendation is there that these two proposals with the 3 subsections. Someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Brindletone. All in favour? Yes. Thank you. Right, other late agenda items is the minutes of the previous meetings. I think we thought as a proper reflection of these in that discussion we had with Carl a little while ago. We didn't used to, the chairs used to just give a brief run through of each of the agendas, and we will do that next time. On the basis that, yeah, we might just do that. I neglected to, I suppose, alert the chairs to that. We just thought we might do a little quick précis for, not necessarily for our gallery or our viewers, but also for our councillors that are not at those respective meetings. But notwithstanding the fact they're read and everyone gets the minutes, we could go through those. But anyhow, look, we can adopt them all together. So that's the minutes of the finance. Sorry, Councillor.
It's a bit of a tricky one in the sense that in the Finance and Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting agenda today, there was a reference to a parcel of land.
Yes, with an incorrect lot number.
Yeah, but it's actually not referred to in the minutes, so do we just, where do we where do we correct that? Just look, Mr.
I'm
Bradshaw?
sure we spoke about that amendment. It's actually correcting the, not the lot number, it's actually the survey plan number.
Yeah. So, but there's no actual reference to the survey plan number in the typed minutes. So would you just put it, like,
I'd make the suggestion, Mr. Mayor, that we just make a note at the bottom of the relevant report that the lot referenced in the original agenda was incorrect and it should have been the new lot number for completeness rather than going back to amend an agenda that had been finalised and circulated.
exactly.
Should just form a note underneath the relevant section. So what part of the agenda was it provided in?
Departmental update, land development section.
Yeah, that was open session, wasn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Mayor, just, do we have to actually sign off on these minutes on the day they're done without reading them every time, or could they be held over and distributed and confirmed at the next meeting?
You can't.
Yeah, this has been the approach discussed again, only a couple of weeks ago. So that's probably a broader discussion from council beyond just today's exception of it. Doing something different today isn't necessarily going to send the right signals. If we want to change that process, we should change it.
So have they been distributed? Have we? Well, I can't see them on.
Did you get a hard copy, Dave?
No.
I just resynced before too, they weren't there, then I resynced. Okay, sorry.
There's a, yeah, well, are we talking about?
It's not very well for the council.
Through the chair, yeah, where reference is made to lot 1 on ST 217713.
Yep,
It should be lot 1 on SP 214713.
that's correct.
Yeah.
It's got to be good, mate.
Sorry?
That's all you need.
Yeah. Sorry, is that okay? Is that
They are on docs, okay.
So look, they are document, haven't we? Look, councillors, I don't know that there's a lot of, I mean, these are the same records that would appear, and I suppose you've got to view them and be comfortable with the fact that they are recorded. My suggestion would be that you adopt these, and we do have a discussion about it going forward, if councillors aren't happy with it. Right, happy with it? What do you think?
Fine, but I do actually, there's a couple of changes that I'd like to make in the community standing committee. If you want me to raise these now, otherwise I'll.
Yeah.
So just down on page 15 of the, sorry, under general business, just under Councillor McIndoe's comments, I don't think it's very clear when things are just saying in brackets spraying, what was actually meant by that. So I think spraying required or something, certainly that one with that 5 mile reserved was talking about the new, hang on a sec. A new contractor needs to be bound to undertake that weed spraying, and then the same with the, as the point above noted, the pathing outbreak on the east side of the Emerald Cemetery, instead of just saying spraying required or something like that, it's just a bit odd, spraying in brackets, for somebody.
So you just want the brackets removed, councillor?
No, just put spraying required,
Right.
not just spraying, because I don't think if anyone else was picking this up, they would actually know what that
You could be interpreting that as being sprayed or it needs spraying.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Could be working.
I certainly looked at it and went,
Just
what?
community
Only
spraying.
used to chemical spraying. If you're not used to spraying at all, what's spraying?
But then under Councillor Goodman Smith's realised cactus one that's got into the spring shore, it says here that spraying's required. It's just the same wording. That's all.
Yeah, it's just to be a bit clearer on what was meant.
So we can do these now, as I said, it's quite going to go through these, and we can adopt them and then make the changes that need to be got a
Yeah,
notice.
let's do it.
Well, yeah, these are just.
Might as well, because you're forgetting next.
That's exactly right. They'll work through. So is there any other changes?
No, we've got a really good chair.
Yeah, some people don't. Takes a bit of writing. Any other changes, Chair Daniels?
No, I'm happy with the remainder
Happy with
of
those?
my report. It's not like in there.
No, I realise that. Did you happy with your Chair Godwin Smith? Now, Chair Rolfe, are you happy with yours? Right. Okay, so councillors, the chairs of those respective groups are pretty happy with those minutes. With those notes, I'm just really keen to make sure that they're noted that that's what we need to do, just note those changes.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So they're noted. All right. Well, someone have to move those minutes, the three lots, moved by councillor Brimble, seconded councillor Godwin Smith. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Right, yeah, closed session, I believe. General business. There's a couple of things I'll jump in first if I can, please. Councillor Bell would like to go to attend the Smart Cities Conference. Previously, we moved a resolution, I think Councillor Daniels and Councillor Godwin Smith were attending. Would someone like to move Councillor Bell's attendance at that meeting as well, at that conference, please, as well? No one wants him to go. Yeah, moved by Councillor Godwin Smith.
Meeting,
You better second it, mate.
Oh, gee, Billy, can you give me a $50 note, please?
Yeah.
someone's got a
Don't
baby.
even joke about that, Gary.
No, I realise that. Seconded by Councillor Daniels. All in favour? Against? Thank you. So Councillor Bell, you are attending the Smart Cities Conference. Right, now, Councillor, just in relation to this up there on the board, the special budget meeting is for the afternoon of the 26th at 5:30 p.m. We'll just roll through that budget meeting, which won't be that long.
Half an hour.
Half an hour. We adopt those different parts of the budget. There's a couple of resolutions, I think. So councillors, would someone have to move that budget meeting is held in. Moved by Councillor Rolfe, second Councillor Daniels. That's after our general meeting on the 26th at 5:30 p.m. So all in favour? Yes? Thank you. Right, any other general business?
Just one more matter, Mr. Mayor, I've mentioned it to Councillor Laws last week, and that is the Santos $400 million project in the Arcadia Valley that's been given final approvals to proceed. They have put out some communications directly to residents in the Arcadia Valley, but I think it would be prudent if we could perhaps contact the representatives to see if they might like to come and talk to us, because it's.
That's the Tri-Star Health?
No, this is Santos.
Santos, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, there's, they're talking about 2 4G communication towers down there, 137 new wells, 140 kilometres of gas and water gathering network infrastructure. There is not 7,000 jobs, but about 300 construction jobs. So there's going to be a pretty big footprint in the Arcadia Valley region. So I think it would be good for us to understand what that is. And,
good point there, you
so
go.
and I've got a couple of contacts here. I think I'll forward them through to Mr. Bradshaw.
Councillor, we're also trying to get it to the industry forum on the 18th of July as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Through the Mayor, councillors, just a heads up, we have engaged with them. We have an infrastructure agreement with them. We've done a joint road inspection with them, and I was hoping to get the report to this round of committee meetings, work pressure budgets. We're bringing it to the next meeting, and I will try and get their representative up. If possible, but as it stands, yes, we have to push hard to get under that infrastructure agreement, get a works program and a maintenance program for that road together to bring to council and say this is what they propose in their funding. It's a joint funded process. They pay pro rata for their damage. So there's a report due. And it's due for the next meeting. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it here today.
And I mean, they're starting construction in July. So.
That's correct. They're commencing in July, and that's why we behind the eight ball trying to get a program of works together by agreement before they commence and get it signed off.
Because I mean, the last time that we did a road infrastructure agreement with Santos, it wasn't Trustdown. I can't think of the name of the company that was there as their subcontractor, but they'd been and gone. And we were still trying to get an agreement signed. So
We do have one now, and on the basis of that agreement, there is certain requirements, and this is one of them, is they advised us, we've done a joint inspection, we've got a indicative works program which we have to bid on, and we try and bring it to council, so that is due news. But we'll try and get them up to present as well. Yeah, it is quite a sizable development.
And I mean, it was Saipem that were their subcontractor last time. So if they're using subcontractors, I guess it's nice to know, the issue with subcontractors, like last time we knew if we had problems with Saipem on the ground, which we did, we knew what to do, landholders and residents knew what to do as well, so.
We are on I believe, again, they didn't mention subcontractors, but as it stands, we're negotiating directly with them. So in my opinion, we have a pretty good relationship to start with, and presume that is going to be the means of communication. I would definitely not like to see them abdicate the responsibility to a subcontractor.
No, it would just be good to hear more about the project.
Yeah, through the mayor, just like to throw TriStar in there as well, if we can ever contact them.
Yeah. I guess the people at DNRM sort of gave us indication of those lessees, but certainly indicated that it might be difficult to contact them, we'll certainly try and get those. All right, any other general business?
Yes.
Oh, councillor.
No, just go ahead.
Sorry,
Okay,
come back here.
We've had discussions, further discussions with a financial institution paying for the banking services. They're fairly keen, and it's just been in the last week, last week. So it's still, we've still got two proponents, one of which we had a meeting with last week. So it's all still chugging along.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Simon.
Look, I've just got a couple of little things that, well, they're not little things, they're big things, but they're ongoing things that I just wanted, the community of Rubyvale just asked me to raise them again. The dump point at Sapphire, continually overflowing. Can we please look at either getting another dump point, an additional dump point? And it'd be good if it could be at Rubyvale, but that dump point is a health hazard and a major issue. So I just want to highlight that yet again. And the other one was there's an NBN tower at Rubyvale, and they were wondering if, I don't know whose responsibility this is, but they were wondering if someone could find out whether a TV booster or whatever can be put on that tower so they can get decent TV reception in Rubyvale, because they can't at the moment. So I'm not sure what the deal is there, like who follows up on what there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, happy to follow up on that. There's some previous work in the background.
Yeah, I thought you had.
I think we do have some correspondence with that particular community member.
And then, of course, they raised the issue again of locality and where we're at with that. And I just said that it was ongoing and will be. So that's me.
I'm pretty sure, Mr. Mayor, that in a report somewhere that it was identified that that dump point was going to be decommissioned and there was a new one.
There was one to come in, but when is that happening? And what will happen though is, doesn't matter, the same issue, no matter where you put the dump point, the issue will be ongoing, because it's not just the tourists using that dump point, and that's what's causing the issue. The residents are going in there and dumping into that dump point, and that will always be the issue. So that was why, even if you have a second one, it's probably still going to be the issue, but the second one will help.
Using it rather than
yes, yeah.
Marnie, that's the dump point in South Island.
Yeah, there is only one, they would like one in Rubyvale.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to respond to that, the Parks and Gardens team have done some preliminary work on that, and there is a project proposed for the future year, so we just need to confirm where that sits from a budgetary perspective, and then, if not, if we're unable to allocate money for that particular project, we'll be looking for an alternative solutions.
Yeah, because it is a real health hazard.
And there are subsidies available for health costs as well.
Yeah, we have been working to advocate towards the state government who recently introduced some deviations away from
The RV might get some funding too that we can access. Yeah, the dump points, yeah. So we need to look into that too. Okay, thank you.
Well, I think
it is with the peak tourism and everything. How often or do we need to increase our services there and monitor that more closely? It's going to get out of control.
We have increased our services, and I'll ensure that we are on top of that so it doesn't overflow.
And we've had two inspection as well, I'm pretty sure, too, with the down at the Lions Park there. It happens every time, and I know they have increased it, double size there, and that's with the new toilets. So how does it look, guys? We've never, because God, there's a lot of, it's across the road there, but the river, but across the road in that big park, there's heaps of people over there. Does it ever overflow this way?
It goes in sewage.
Oh, it goes in sewage, that's right, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right, councillor, any other general business? Yep, councillor McIntyre.
Yeah, we've got a second year in a row world champion, Cassie Pickard, arrives home tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and be nice if we, from a local communities, acknowledge her success in the World Championships as the world record holder once again.
Yeah, I got a call from, I didn't get a call, I got a message from someone I didn't know, I just got a message, are we welcoming Hannah Cass Pickard? And I sent a message back saying, when does she come back?
5+3 tomorrow?
No, and I didn't get a reply, and I did think, well, what do we do? Do we provide a ticket tape parade, flowers, signs, what can we do? So what do you want to do?
When she come back?
She flies in tomorrow afternoon, 3:05. Last year when she run the school went out there.
Yeah, there's a bridge out there.
After school this year, I'm not sure if they're doing anything. But as a community, something of such significance, we should make some noise of it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, I agree, but what do you do? What do you do?
Presentation of flowers, probably.
Maybe, no, are we public still?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should be doing something.
Okay, well, we'll work it out. We'll take it on board and we'll work something out. Yeah. Okay. Well done, Mel.
You did something to do. Yeah. Billy always goes to ask her. Oh, you are very important.
Sure, it's an age thing.
I was just going to bring up the fact of the RFDS day at Buckland on Saturday. And we've been talking about having the opening of the strip. Are we going to, is someone going to be there to kind of officially open it or have a speech about it, or going to cut a ribbon or going to forget about it, or what?
Are you going to?
I'm going, yeah.
Well, it's sort of odd because I don't know how, if you're not invited to it, how do you open it? I mean,
I think you just have to say something. But if you're not invited, yeah.
Well, where
I suppose we own it. It's our street. But we've been talking about having an opening on that day, and that's what I just wondered what sort of an opening delegate.
Well, I had the question come up on consultation last week from people that are on the committee, like they don't even know about it.
Well, that's the thing.
Like, and the funny thing
I don't know anything about it.
It's an opportunity to do it, but as they said, well, how's it going to work? Because RFDS plane is not actually going to land on that strip. They're going to land at the Buckland Recreational Club. So it's like, well, then what do you do? Either jump everyone in the car and then go down.
And then say, this is it, but they didn't use it. They have speeches there. I just thought, rather than anything else, you just have a speech there and just say, you know, that council has provided this strip and it's registered now, I think, because Jason said he was getting it registered. It's ready to use. And just let the community know that council have provided that. That's,
Oh, there'll be 4 of us in Canberra, I think.
Well, I think it would be very awesome if Councillor Nixon could do that.
Well, I think so, if you would like to do that, I'm very happy to.
I just think it's an opportunity to let them know that we have thought about them and we've got that there for them. And I can't, you wouldn't go down the strip and cut a ribbon or anything like that, but you could just have something there to say something, or whether you give them a little.
Would you be happy to do that on council's behalf?
Yeah, I can do that, but it's just, just call it officially open and say it's open for emergency service in the future.
Well, we can provide something here, we can.
Is it, we can get a little plaque done up that they could put it back on?
Just the date and that it's officially open.
It's like to say.
We can see, we'll get something, see if we can get some board.
Yeah.
Little.
Yeah, and I think that Councillor Nixon's been a very strong advocate for this to happen. I think it's absolutely perfect if you're open to that.
Rightio.
Right, thank you, Garth. Any other general business?
Yeah, just, at the consultation last week, there was a conversation about at least 1 or 2 of the stops we had about black spots. I see yesterday, Senator Bridget McKenzie announced that $25 million for more rural and regional and small community black spot towers or whatever. So I was just didn't have a conversation with Sandra about that, and we've got a good plan, I think.
So round 4 is due to open the second half of the year, but there's no real details yet, but regional and remote areas of Australia. Stay tuned for details is pretty much what we're up to, I think, at this stage. But I think, Daniel, there's been some previous black spot reports and priority areas, so it's probably an opportunity to revamp or update that report and be ready for that submission when it comes through.
We had some previously identified spots, 3 in particular that went forward that were unsuccessful last time, so we'll do another review of that to ensure that those are the ideal spots for the next section.
Which ones were they?
Can't quite remember off the top of my head. I know one of them's in Arcadia Valley, one of them's in Lockington.
One in Moss Creek.
Ruby Vale's another one.
And I think that Tambo Way was another one because they brought it from.
And we've got the audit to support that now as well.
I think the report we did was grouping them, trying to get them in a sequence so that you've got a.
And this is why I think it's important Santos come and talk to us, because what Senator Bridget McKenzie said on the radio this morning was there was a very strong focus on partnerships, and that's exactly the thing that went through my head was, well, if Santos are wanting to put 2 towers down there, that would virtually solve telecommunications issues. Stop, and if we can
partner and get 4.
Well, that is a good opportunity.
Hope to have the towers left there when they're legal to.
That's the problem, Charlie, yeah.
Well, we'll put those together, councillor, does it?
Yeah, no, just so we can get a plan.
Let's
get into it. That's
all right. Councillors, we might move into closed session. There's a lot of time moved, we do move to councillor Nixon, second councillor Daniel, all in favour? Against? Right, now, I think one of those matters, as prescribed where standing committee votes is not affected by, I guess, those particular reports.
but
Okay, councillors, just as back into our open streaming session again, just as a point of order so that we follow due process with our reporting of our interest and to report our voting correctly. Councillor Godwin-Smith has declared an interest in item 20.1 and as a council appointed member of the board, she will stay in the room and participate in the discussion. We need a resolution to recognise that, so councillors, we're happy to have Councillor Godwin-Smith stay in the room to participate in the discussion. All in favour? Against? Thank you.
Second.
I move.
If it's a resolution.
Yeah, we didn't have that last time.
No, but last time we didn't.